but we don't need each other. So that leads to isolation. And I think that one of the first things we become isolated from, one of the first people, is ourselves.
Wow.
How do you go in there? How do you start connecting? And let me tell you something. I'll tell our viewers the same thing I would tell anybody else. I could climb Mount Everest. I mean, I can't. Okay, that climb wouldn't be as bad as the journey that I took within, or that I have to take within on a daily basis.
Hello, everyone. This is Kathy Mason from Mason Works Marketing here on For Soul Illumination, a new show. And I am so excited to introduce you to my dear friend, Miriam Schiff. Hi, Miriam.
How are you? Oh, thank you for inviting me.
Oh, I'm so excited to hear what you have to say. This idea came through about talking about the soul and talking about people's connection and what they really want other people to know about how to have their own connection came through. And I really think it's so important. So I couldn't wait to have you on and get your opinion. Miriam and I met when we both were working on a spiritual healers promotion here in Boulder, Colorado, where we both worked on the marketing department. And we got 8,500 people to come over a weekend to see this healer. And she and I had so much fun. We just giggled and, right?
Two East Coast people, we Brooklyn and New Jersey, we got together immediately.
Really? Well, so all I know is I am very excited to hear your story about how you connected to your soul mission and what your impression is about the soul, because I know you're so heartfelt. So I'm very excited for you to share your expression and your knowledge about how you connected to your soul, and then maybe that'll help other people learn how to connect with theirs. So Miriam, you tell us a little bit about how you became interested in a spiritual journey.
I think as far as my soul journey, I must have been born with it, and then it got clouded. Okay, it got clouded, it got impacted by life, it got impacted by the shoulds and the coulds, and you really should be doing this, and you really should be doing that. And I truly believe that, I hear my mom come out of my mouth a lot lately. And and this was one of her things, I only wish I knew now what I knew when I was younger. So I guess what happens is the older you get, the more wisdom you get. And then you reach certain stages in your life when you say, forget it. This is who I am. This is what I believe in. This is the important things for me. And everything else falls by the wayside. And I need to also let you know that it's always been about connection with me. Even when I was younger, I remember a friend's husband had died, and I knew that she needed to come to us for dinner one night. And I told my mom, Edie needs to come to dinner. Now I can have memories about that. Don't ask me about yesterday though, because at this stage of my life, it's easier to remember 70 years ago than it is now. But the commonality through all that, I didn't have the insights 77 years ago that I have now. I believed what everybody else said. The spirituality was there. I didn't know how to access it. I looked at the world. And the only thing that I remember, and I must have come in with this, was not being able to understand man's inhumanity to man, not being able to understand why countries like more currently Darfur, when I was a teenager, it was Biafra, that they would just disappear, that children would be starving. I could never understand it. I never knew how to channel that. It was like all of a sudden, I just wanted to all encompass everything. So let's flash forward. I had kids. I got married. I had kids. I went to school when my master's program when I was 51, and I started learning that I did have the skills to do whatever I needed to do. I did have the skills to attract whatever I needed to attract. I would wonder why people were asking me my opinion. I mean, I'll never forget, I had a teacher who said to me, well, what do you think? And I thought she was talking to somebody behind me, because in my generation, it was never about, well, what do you think? Because you couldn't think. I mean, you weren't brought up to have a critical mind. Now we're not being brought up to be critical thinkers. So I guess critical thinking in both ways needs to happen.
Okay, so wait, I'm gonna stop you for a second. So you grow up in Brooklyn, you grow up and you're programmed by your culture, and you get married, you have the kids, and then something happened. So you went back to school at 51.
Went back to school when I was 50 for a master's degree.
Wow.
Graduated when I was 51. And it was the first time that somebody had said to me, what do you think? What do you want to do? And I went, well, what are they talking about? That's not, and you knowing who I am now, that's really difficult for you to believe, but it's true. So what happened was, and I went to a school also that was very trauma oriented, was cultural sensitivity. You get to know about everybody else. And don't forget, I was also born and raised in Brooklyn. So going into Manhattan, being multicultural, you weren't multicultural. You didn't have to learn about multicultural. It was right there. The neighborhoods were right there. It wasn't this big thing of having to learn it, or I didn't see it. I was born and raised in Brooklyn. It was not a suburb. So my kids were raised with a sense of multiculturalism. Everybody was invited into our house. It didn't make a difference. If I liked you as a friend, which you came into the house. I mean, that's a Brooklyn thing. You became family. Everybody was there. When I started working, I only worked in nonprofit agencies, so I saw the other side of life. And I worked in Camp Challenger, which is a camp for incarcerated youth. We're talking 14 to 18, because 18 they go to jail. And realized that I was connecting with them. What was the connection? They were human beings. Did I have reactions when they told me certain things? Yes, because it wasn't my reality. But then I realized that their reality was their reality, so there was no judgment involved. Okay, so I'll give you an example. I worked with a group of adolescent boys that were inner city, high risk. Some of them were belonged to gangs as well. And we had a group. And in one group, they started talking about themselves and who they were and what they liked and what they didn't like. And I asked one of the other boys, so your enemy is here. Can you smoke him now? Meaning, can you shoot him? And he said, no. And I said, why not? And he said, because I know and hear. So all of a sudden, I started thinking that there is this commonality of the heart that we all have, that it's about connection, which is what 2024 is about, connection and caring. So I said, how am I going to bring this to everybody else? I started working for KGNU. I was there for 14 years, bringing shows that educated and interviewed people that you wouldn't normally hear about, undocumented, um, um, undocumented people that came here, that are here, that would do it all over again. And the connections just started growing, and the understanding of what marginalization did started growing. And then I brought it to, how do I marginalize myself? How do people marginalize themselves? How do we believe that the words of that we hear in society? I hate the word TOO because it's a judgmental word.
Oh.
And if you say too, it's either somebody's too much, or the house is too big, or they're too big, or they're too small. I don't want that word as part of the English language anymore. So I started looking at all of this stuff, and I had people come to me and say, how do I do this? And I said, okay, you have to connect with yourself. And I'm not saying I do this every day, and I'm not saying that I do this perfectly, okay, because I'm a human being. And there are times where the judgment flows out of my brain, maybe not out of my mouth anymore, but it flows out of my brain. And I have to bless myself for even thinking it, and bless the person that it's addressed to, and realizing that I'm not giving out what I want to give out. So I'll give you an example. Somebody will come to me and say, well, I don't know how to do this or that, or, how can you help me? And I need answers. This is when I was a therapist, and even now, and I would look at them and go, wait a minute. I don't have the answers for your life. I don't even have the questions for my life, let alone know the answers. But let's go and let's look at how you're connecting with yourself, how you're connecting with your inner life, how you're presenting that to the outer world, and what you're listening to in the outer world, because that's going to impact how you care about yourself and how you care about others. We are not raised in this society to care about others. We're an industrialized community. We have machines to do it and other things to do it. If we were an agricultural community, we would need each other, but we don't need each other. So that leads to isolation. And I think that one of the first things we become isolated from, one of the first people, is ourselves.
Wow.
How do you go in there? How do you start connecting? And let me tell you something. I'll tell our viewers the same thing I would tell anybody else. I could climb Mount Everest. I mean, I can't. Okay. That climb wouldn't be as bad as the journey that I took within, or that I have to take within on a daily basis. Because I'm not going in there and seeing balloons and lollipops and sparkles and sprinkles and confetti. Okay. I'm going in there and I'm saying, you're not nice to yourself. You were just a witch to somebody else. So let me tell you how my day starts. Before I open up my eyes, you and I were just talking about this. I do meditation because I was trained by one of the best, Kathy told me about. And is it every morning? Sometimes I forget, okay? Because you're looking at a human being. This is who I am. This is my vibrational level. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So before my feet hit the floor, I meditate. And then I listen to this wonderful song called I Release Control. I forgot the gal who did it, but you could just Google I Release Control. And I listen to that. And when I listen to that, I start saying it in my head for the day. And then I get up. Some days I remember to do my gratitude list. Some days I don't. All right. So the reason I'm telling you this is because I don't want anybody to think that it has to be perfect. Another word society gave us to unbalance. There is no such thing as perfect. There is no such thing as perfection. Everybody is doing their best, whatever their best is. The mom who's in chaos all the time because she's single mom is doing her best. And if we look at things like that, they're doing their best. How do you judge? How do you look at somebody and say, you could be doing it better? Your kid could have a cleaner face. You could be living better. Well, what are you doing to make that happen for them? So I believe that it's a two-way street. So I'll get up, do my meditation, do my gratitude list, and start my day. I don't watch television anymore unless it makes me happy. Okay. My husband knows if he's watching television, I can't be in the room, or sometimes in the house. And sometimes I tell him he has to have the windows open because the energy just becomes rampant. And he says, okay, you're taking it a little bit too far. I mean, you've met Stan, so you know what, you know. But let me tell you something. My material life and my spiritual life go like this. There is no either or. Sometimes my material life overwhelms my spiritual life. And sometimes I won't get out of the bedroom, or not even going to get out of the bed, because I don't want to, there are too many people. You know, it's two people out there. I need to bring it in. I couldn't do this, Kathy, when you and I first met. It took me years to realize it's okay to take care of myself. So this relationship for me fluctuates. You know, I get up, I open up my eyes, I'm my soulful self. I know how I want to be in the world. And then sometimes I put my feet on the ground and judge myself. You know, I mean, can you understand that? It's not, I have to remind myself that I'm human, and I want everybody to understand this. You got to be good to yourself. If you are not good to yourself, if you are not here for yourself, and I don't mean you have to eat a certain way, you have to stop judging yourself for what you did, for what you said, even if it was 5 minutes ago. Get up every day and it's a new day. And will I bring the stuff from yesterday? I can. Okay. So I want you all to know that I have to cognitively remind myself to keep my spiritual insights. You know, I'm not a spiritual person. I don't know how to say that. That's why for me, it's like this, it's intertwined.
I want to share, you just kind of glossed over that for 14 years, you had more than one show, right? You had 2 shows.
5 shows a month, 5 shows, 5 weekly shows, 4 and 5 a week. Yeah.
Wow. For 14 years on a local nonprofit radio station here. And Miriam sort of glossed over her incredible contribution to a more expanded view of life than most of the shows that are on that radio station. And the spread of different ideas. Miriam there was a show called the Vagina Monologues that she got me to sponsor. And I didn't even know what it was. He asked me, I said yes. And then I went to the rehearsal and found out, oh my God. Anyway.
But it was an educational, expanding experience,
wasn't it? It was. That's right. That's right. But what the thing is what we're saying pretty much is connection to soul is connection inside and then going outside. And then once you have that connection, again, you said very quickly about the gang work that you did in LA. you said it pretty quickly, but it was remarkable. That's one of the things I'll always remember. It was shocking to me that you were able to do that and not be manipulated by the participants, number one, and number two, how you could hold the pain that was in that room with them. I mean, that had to be again a soul mission kind of job where you were able to. You said to me one time, "You can never tell me anything that'll shock me. I've heard it all," and
I had to learn how to sit like this because I mean I was
your chin would have.
The first drive-bys, I was told about everything. I was honest and open with them. Number one, I think they all knew I was from Brooklyn, so it gave me an in. But at the beginning of the sessions, when I first met them, they said to me, you know, if you were walking in the street, we'd hassle you. We would just want to screw you over. And I said, I know that, and if I was walking in the street, I would want to cross the street and I couldn't. So by the end of our time together, I was invited to their neighborhoods, not because, and I'm not blowing my own horn, but let me tell you why it happened. Because they saw this woman that they had a preconceived conception about, white, upper middle class, walked in looking like I look now, okay? And I accepted them, and I asked them to teach me what it's like to be you, which is what I wanted the 14 years of the radio show to do. Teach us about you. Teach us what it's like to be part of Black Lives Matter. Teach us what it's like to be a Black mother sending her child into the street or having to have a talk with the child about when they go into the street, to be worried about them even if they're age 23, to expand the heart knowledge that we have of others, because only through understanding that is that connection going to happen. And we're in such a divisive environment now that everything is pulling every which way, and for whatever trauma they're all bringing, and that would be another show altogether, but what we're seeing is unresolved trauma, but we're being pulled apart. Where is the connection? Well, I'm not saying I want to sit with everybody, but I'm saying that if we can take away our preconceived notions and connect. I've connected to mothers in Palestine without language, because there's a heart commonality that we all want. That's the connection. Yeah. That everybody wants the same thing. They want love, they want protection, they want acceptance, they want the best for their families. And if we could get down to that level, Kathy, I care about you, and it's more to see your spark flow.
Right.
That makes me so good,
right,
than mine. Because in turn, you look at me and say, but I love you too, and I'm not saying we're all going to go, kumbaya tomorrow. But if we can understand that we need to start looking at each other and the commonalities that we have as human hearts.
Yep.
We have a better standing of doing what we need to do in this world, which is to care about each other and do good by each other. I used to end all my shows saying, be good to each other. Because that's all that matters.
Well, the thing is that the first part of this show, you were talking about how you had to learn how to do this for yourself first. And that's the key, I think. And hopefully your sharing of how you do it and what you do first thing in the morning and how you walk through life and see yourself reflected in others, or you reflecting their divinity back to them, you're really a crusader, actually, for wake up. Really. And that's what that was for 14 years. I mean, that was a huge gift that you gave the Boulder, Denver community.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. So I think you've also said something that I'm very interested in your take on, because we're in this changing time where we really are getting to see, because of the internet and because of the media, we're getting to see our common grounds, but also all the chaos. And what we're forgetting is that, like that Sting song, the Russians love their children too. There's, that we all have a common ground of humanity. But it's even deeper than that. I think with you, it's a lot of soul work. It's a lot of this inner heart work that you kind of touch on. Could you share just a little more about that? Because okay, so I've known you, I don't know, a while. And
15 years.
yeah, probably. And what's been amazing is that you share yourself fully with lots of people. You are like a walking, talking heart. And so that's why a lot of people want you to mother them. You can adopt me anytime if you'd like.
Oh, I thought you were already.
But the sense of this, I'm trying to give other people a sense of how they can connect with people like you have, where there's no judgment, only uplifting expectation. And it's almost like you see the God or the soul or the spark in them, and then
Yes.
and then lift them up with it. Could you talk a little bit about that?
It's almost intangible what happens. It's almost like when I was sitting that mother, I was Jewish, sleeping in a West Bank home. First time they ever met a Jew, let alone having them sleep in their house. And the baby was 4 years old. It was the last night of vacation, and the baby wouldn't go to sleep. And she kept on apologizing and apologizing. And I said to her, very little language, I went through the same thing with my children. It made it okay. It made it okay for her to not feel okay, to want to do something else. It made it okay for her child where I didn't think they were bothering me. So I think one of the biggest things was that it made it okay to be who they were. Okay, it made it okay. I walk around all the time like this because I could see a puppy in the street or just a leaf blowing, and I'm going to teach you a word for Klimt. I'm sure you all know what it means, but I'm like that a lot. Okay, I just, things touch me, and I need to share it with somebody. I need to share that person's goodness with them.
Exactly.
I need to let them know this is what I see. When I was with these boys in the camp, I would say to them, and drug dealers who are successful drug dealers, we know now are successful entrepreneurs in the wrap clothing industry. If somebody didn't believe in them, it never would have happened. Okay, so they believed in themselves. Somebody said, "Oh my God, that is so fantastic." Okay, is it going to make a difference in your life? No. What I learned was, and this was from having a daughter, both of them are super creative, and I would never say to them after they did something, it was okay, but
Right.
because it's creativity. So what I'm telling you is, I walk around feeling full. And I need to share that with people. I need to walk in a room and hug you. And I used to hide that. It was cloaked because it was too much, TOO. Okay. And it was overwhelming for a lot of people. And dressing a certain way was overwhelming for a lot of people. It was just too much. And then I said, well, screw that. It's not working for them. It's not working for me. So the thing is not to be afraid to show somebody who you are.
Well,
the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Well, that's what I learned from you is you grew up where you couldn't talk really, and as a woman in that society. And then when I met you, you were like standing for women's rights and helping the underdog. And so it is hard to envision you as the sensitive, quiet child. Sorry.
I refused at one point to be invisible, but that invisibility also became because I was vulnerable. All right. And I didn't want to be visible. I was taught from, knee high to a grasshopper, you don't let anybody see you because they will take you away. And it was a Holocaust mentality.
Right.
But there came a time when I had to sit down with every part of me that I really didn't want to see and have tea with it and say, here we are. I love you, but you're not working for me anymore. Okay. Because I have to accept myself every day, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm not perfect. I hate that word perfect. I'm an imperfect. I'm not even an imperfect. I'm a human being who's doing the best that they can. Right. And I look at you and everybody else as a human being who's doing the best that you can.
Right.
And when I have somebody say to me, I just want somebody to see me as a human being and not what they think I am.
Right. Beautiful.
That's what life is. So I'm going to leave you with this. How are we, besides the meditating, okay, besides the gratitude list, besides all the tools, how are we going to be okay enough to accept ourselves and our own inner light so that I can see yours? That's what I leave your listeners with. How do we do that? And if anybody wants to know how to do that, Kathy has my information. But I can only tell you what I did, not what you should be doing.
Oh, I can't wait to see what you're going to do next. I mean, seriously, you guys, this is really, truly a gift to have someone explain their journey in a way that you could put it into your own experience and come out the other side expanded in a unity consciousness mode where you actually see the gift and you change your perspective of being critical and judgmental to being in love with life. And that's what this whole time period is about, reconnecting to the soul. There's no junk here. We've labeled it junk or a separation mentality out of fear. And once we go from back to love, who we really are as souls, and connect and use this as our guidance system, right?
That's right. Because that's all that matters. This matters. This and yours. Yours matter.
Right.
Okay, whatever's going on in here matters. And it should matter to everybody because we all want each other to have the best lives that we can.
Well, you said something else, Miriam, that I really love and I want to share. I did an interview for a testimonial for one of my clients right before this, and someone that was giving the testimonial said, she saw me. She was the first person who validated and saw me, and that turned my whole life around. And you know, how much are we spending time seeing ourselves at all and getting through all of the shadow or whatever the forgiveness of anything. It's not just the others, it's forgiveness of ourselves and getting back to our heart, right?
Because it's always been there. It's always been there. It's just been clouded. We've just been,
That's right.
hearing words that promote separateness. Words, we're in a wonderful time period where our non-binary and our gender fluid communities are telling us that it's no either or, that it's the same coin, that we're all the same. And if we don't start accepting each other within our differences,
Right,
which is something that the mainstream doesn't want us to do, we are not going to make it. We need to accept each other. I need to look at all of you out there and accept our differences and love our differences, and maybe not even understand it, our differences, but know that they're there and respect that we have it, and still care about each other.
right.
Still care about your children. Because if your children are hungry and your children aren't eating and you're crying about it, well, then I'm crying too.
Right, right. But the thing that's beautiful about all of this is it's not just empathy, it's empathy with action. So what we're doing is we're really coming to a more unified, connected place where our relationships take a priority, relationship with self, self-love, and then sharing it out. So if you were going to tell someone struggling to balance that daily material life and our spiritual life, what would you tell them? I know you've shared how people can, what your routine, your morning routine is.
Yeah, I would tell them what I have to tell myself,
Okay.
which is all of that out there doesn't matter. It's what's in here that counts. How I am with myself and how I am with others. Because all of this, as I learned 2 years ago in the Marshall Fire, thank God nothing happened. We were displaced though. All of this can disappear in a second. And the only thing you're going to be left with is this. And honey, if you don't like this, you're out of luck. So we have to look in here, as I said before, the good, the bad, the ugly. Every day, give ourselves kudos for having another day and making it the best day that we can for others and ourselves. Because in here, for me now, that's the only thing.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I want to make sure, well, what is the best way to reach you, Miriam, if they want to, now that they can hear your past recordings on kgnu.org, right?
It's under Metro, kgnu.org. You can hear the recordings there. And also, I want you to be good to yourselves. I want you to love yourselves, like breathe in for yourselves, because without that we don't have anything. You can get me at Miriam, Miriam Schiff, SCHIFF 123 at gmail.com. I know that's a biggie. And you can find me on Facebook under Miriam Mimi Mimi Schiff, SCHIFF as in Frank. And that's the social network that I have. I will reach out my hand to anybody who needs to or who wants to start their journey.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. I love you, and I'm so excited for everyone to have gotten a chance to meet you today, Miriam, and thank you for illuminating us on the Four Soul Illumination new podcast that's going to really help, hopefully, many more people put aside their judgments and their stories and pick the reconnection to who they really are. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Be well, everyone.
Thank you, dear.